So let's say you're jumping into the gaming PC scene for the first time and you want to take it upon yourself to build your own system. First off, I applaud you, my friend. That is a jump into the deep end, and while it's not very complicated in hindsight, building PCs, it is definitely scary the first time or two around. I would say after about the third time, it's pretty straightforward. I think one of the most difficult aspects of PC building, in all honesty, is parts compatibility and sourcing components that actually work with each other. Because there are so many different combinations of hardware possible, it can be difficult to actually pick things that are intended to work with each other. So in desperation, you might be thinking, well, I could just pay somebody else to create parts lists for me. And that service actually exists on sites like Fiverr, and you can get entire PC component lists for full-on builds that will work for like $5. You just go onto Fiverr and you pay someone $5 plus tax or Fiverr's cut or whatever. It comes out to something like $7.28 per if it's a $5 listing. And that person that you hire will create a list or two of PC components that you can go out and then buy and then put together with no worries about compatibility, because they've done that job for you. They've picked components that obviously work. Now, there are sites like PC Part Picker where you kind of pick on your own and then it will tell you if those things are compatible or not. But if you absolutely have no idea where to start and you just have a budget in mind, you can go to a site like Fiverr and they'll take care of it for cheap. That's what I did in this video. I hired 3 different people to build me 3 different gaming PCs, all with the same $1,000 budget. We're going to see how different they are and how I feel about each of these lists. Stay with me. Be Quiet, not you guys, the company. Their new Light Wings fans offer impressive lighting and superior cooling, all while maintaining a low noise profile with high-grade rifle bearing technology and PWM support. Up to 20 individually addressable LEDs are baked into a large ring diffuser, and you'll experience some of the cleanest RGB lighting around, controlled by your motherboard and with the help of a splitter included in the triple packs. Choose between either 120 or 140mm counterparts, as well as standard or high RPM variants for the ideal config in your build. Learn more about Be Quiet Light Wings fans by clicking the link below. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the first Fiverr offer I received. This is from a person called Nico or Nikos G. Ninos, and he was very responsive. I will say that up front. So you can see I placed my order on December 26th at 6:21 p.m. This is a day after Christmas, mind you. And Nico replied very quickly, said, hello, from which site will you pick the parts? We'll get to that in a second, but I do want to show you what his requirements were. Now, these are, I would say, fairly important because depending on how I answer these questions, if any at all exist, that might kind of sculpt how I it might determine how I sculpt my list of parts, I should say. So Nico asked me if how much money I wanted to spend on a PC, basically, is a gist of it. He said, tell me the money you can afford for your PC. Keep in mind, English might not be these folks' first languages, so you'll have to kind of work around that a bit. My response was $1,000, and this was the same budget I gave all 3 contestants. Now back to a second question, from which site will you pick the parts? I think this is a valid question because, again, depending on where I live, these parts may not be readily available, so knowing where I'm going to be buying these up front could help him kind of sculpt his list a bit better. And he responded very quickly. Again, I will make the investment and send back to you tomorrow. Now, what I ended up getting were 2 different lists of PC parts. I didn't expect this. I was only guaranteed 1, but I got an extra one that's a bit of a bonus. Granted, it's not really within the budget constraint that I gave him, but still, I'll take it. So this first Excel spreadsheet he sent actually came in a bit under budget, which, I mean, depending on who you are, that might be a good thing or maybe a bad thing, seeing as though we didn't really maximize the full amount of money that I told him to. We definitely could have upped a few things, including the cooler here. He chose to go with the stock cooler baked in with the i5 11400F, which is a CPU he chose. Maybe could have just thrown in a Hyper 212 Black Edition or something, and you still would have been well within that $1,000 budget. But I really can't complain. I mean, saving money where you can, that's a win, right? So Core i5, and then we've got the stock cooler. I think these 2 are fine within this budget. Asus Prime H410M, so this is a really good choice here. It's not a Z-series motherboard. It wouldn't make any sense anyway because our Core i5 is locked. He chose a kit of Oloy DDR4. We actually made a video on this kit of RAM here. 3000 megahertz, 2 8 gig sticks, and you can see they're $56. So that's dirt cheap in this market. Now, as for the graphics card, this is where I was really interested to see how these folks approach this, because I didn't specify whether I was okay with a used card or not, and granted, even if I said used, it's difficult to find like that one specific listing on eBay that's not going to sell in time, so that I can get to it before someone else does. If you recommend a new listing, apart from just availability overall, you can usually jump on these pretty readily. So, without telling him that I wanted new versus used, he just gave me a new one. I think that was a safe bet, and he recommended a GTX 1650 4 gig. Now, granted, for $325, I think that in the context of what prices used to be 2 years ago, this is a freaking ripoff. But hey, I mean, it's, it's something you could buy right now. It is shipped and sold by Amazon, actually, at that, so it's not being sold by a third party. This is just the state of the market right now. Can't blame the creator of this list. I can't blame Nico, but at the end of the day, it still hurts. And this is what I kind of wanted to see, was how folks were going to be working around this constraint, because it's a pretty big one. Next up on the list, he recommended a Zolman T7 case for $67. I think that's fine within this budget. For those interested, it looks like this here. So it's got a little, slightly perforated front panel. I think that the side panel is actually acrylic, not tempered glass. I might be wrong there, but it actually looks like a pretty decent case. I've wanted to build one just because it is such an affordable one. But at the end of the day, again, I think it fits within the constraint of the budget. The storage he recommended, Samsung 870 EVO. So he recommended a 2.5-inch, 1 TB SATA SSD, which I think is fine for 120 bucks. No problem there. It gives me plenty of storage. It's going to be quite fast at that. And then for the PSU, he recommended a, what is this, a 650 B5. So a 650 watt, 80 plus bronze unit. And seeing as though we've only got a 1650 in here and a locked Core i5 from a generation ago, I think 650 watts is perfectly fine. In fact, you could probably dumb it down to about 500 watts and still be in the clear. And for only 50 bucks at that, I mean, again, no complaints. So I've got to say, Nico, for that first list, you did a really good job. Not that you were, not that you knew I was going to be like critiquing you on this, but you did a really good job. I think that you picked parts that fit the budget quite nicely, and you work around that graphics card issue by recommending something that is shipped and sold by Amazon, which is already difficult to find. And then at that, you recommended a 1650, which I think is fair. Going anything above that, and you really start getting into the heavy scalping territory, and it just gets bloody. So I think you did a really good job with that first list. Now let's check out your second list. So this one is called the best PC build, and it's listed for $1,400. We've got a couple of tips here. I'll read these first. It says, in my opinion, those are the best PC parts for a super PC build. If you want to reduce the amount, then you will need to take a cheaper GPU. Tip, the most expensive part here is the GPU. I bought the same GPU 1660 for $250 before 1 year, because crypto mining, the price has been increased. So if you want to wait for a couple of months, maybe the $650 will deplete. Oof. So the card he recommended is $650. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is, again, I can't blame him because he's not the one setting these prices, but with what's available, that is just a tough pill to swallow. So again, we've got a Core i5 11400F here. He's still sticking with a stock cooler, which I think at $1,400, you don't want to have a stock Intel cooler. So I would definitely throw in 30-40 bucks and get yourself a nice aftermarket Air Tower cooler. Let's see, Gigabyte B560F, so a slightly better motherboard here than in the previous one's case. He recommended better RAM as well, slightly faster, $78. He's got the 1660 Super 6 gig in here now, so a 1660 Super, not just a vanilla 1660. There is a difference there. A Thermaltake Level 20 case, which is $100. So interesting, he went for a more expensive case, but didn't opt for anything better than stock cooling. And then we've got a Crucial P5 Plus 500 gig PCIe 4.0 drive. Okay, interesting. An RM 850X 850 watt 80 plus gold power supply, so a better power supply there. And that total comes out to around $1,400. I've got to say, I think that his first list was stronger. Not only was he able to save me quite a bit of money, I think over $100 under budget, but in this case, really the only substantial thing I noticed, apart from the faster storage drive, which would, that would make a pretty significant difference, but our storage overall capacity was cut in half. I think the other major thing that was changed was the graphics card, and the 1660 Super for 650 bucks. Yes, it's on Amazon. You could buy it right now for that price, but I just think I think recommending that in a $1,400 budget is that's a huge stretch. By that point, I would say hopping onto eBay, even if you're still going to pay well above what the market rate would have been 2 years ago on eBay, you're still going to come in well under 650 bucks for a 1660 Super. In fact, let's check right now. Whew, okay, so you'll save $100, maybe a couple $100, depending on which AIB you buy from, but like this one here for 470 bucks. I mean, that's substantial. That's a $200 savings just by buying on eBay, right? 450 bucks for this Gigabyte model. Again, that's huge savings comparatively. 390 for this one. These are sold listings, by the way, which is why they're in green. You can search that way on eBay. This one's 600 bucks. Again, not as good a deal here. You're creeping closer to new territory. 579. I think this one is brand new. So not so bad there. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely get into the $400 range in the 1660 eBay market. And I'd recommend just buying from one of these folks, to be honest with you. If you get a card that's defective, eBay buyer protection and guarantee 9 times out of 10 is going to be there for you. You can just return it. You'll get your refund via PayPal or however you paid, and then you can try again. So an interesting second list. Again, I didn't ask for it, so I think that it's a plus all the way around. He did have to include a few disclaimers, I noticed, just because of the 1660 Super costing as much as it did. But I think that his stronger list was the $1,000 one. Not only did we come under budget, but I think that the parts there chosen were just, they fit very nicely. So now I've got our second contestant here. This is again a $5 listing, and the total price came out again with taxes and whatever Fiverr bakes into it, $7.28. So I'm getting all this advice for $7 essentially. You can see I placed my order December 26th, and let's see, it was updated early the next morning. The requirements for this one, if I recall, yeah, only one question again. For what kind of PC are you looking, and for what price? So I said, I want a gaming PC for $1,000. So, if they're not asking for like dead on specifics, I'm not going to give you specifics, even though I know you technically need that. If you need more info, you can always ask. But that was it. It was that one question. Again, I don't think that one question is enough, but well, we'll make do with what we have. So a little further down here, I got a message from this person. It says, I've got 2 builds for you. One is an AMD setup and costs $1,002. For me, this is the better build, but I thought if you are more a fan of Intel, then I will also make you an Intel build. So I've made an Intel build, but this one costs $1,100. This is because you need an extra cooler with the CPU, and with the AMD CPU, you get a good one. If you have any questions, just ask, and I will look at what I can do for you. So again, that's pretty cool. I got more than I paid for. I get 2 different parts lists, and this time, this person chose to differentiate between Intel and AMD. So in the previous case, I got 2 Intel builds. I didn't really ask for Intel or AMD. That wasn't a question I was asked, so I just got 2 Intel builds. But in this case, I get kind of the best of both worlds, right? What could I build for both from different teams, I should say, for the same price? So let's jump into the first one here. Let's see. This is the Intel build. And this list I was given directly through Fiverr. It's actually a screen cap of a PC parts picker link, which is what I would have used if I was offering this service. So really cool to see that in use. The first thing we have here is a Core i5 12600K. Wow, we got a 12600K baked into this. That's a really good chip. I didn't even think about having something like this baked into a $1,000 budget, but that's not bad. So $300 for that. Corsair iQ H100i. That's a RGB Pro XT model for, well, after the promo, $80. Asus Prime Z6. You squeezed a Z690 motherboard into this budget, $189. Granted, it's from Asus's website, but still, I wonder if this is a DDR4 motherboard. Yeah, it is. It is a DDR4 motherboard, which is smart. Smart by the creator of this list, because that'll save you quite a bit of money, seeing as DDR5 is just so difficult to get a hold of right now. $62 for 16 gigs and a pretty sweet CAS and frequency there. We got a WD Blue SN550. This is a 500 gig NVMe drive, so really cool there. And look at that, $40, so saving money where it counts. That's a good price. We got an EVGA GTX 1650, a 4 gig for $345. This looks like it was... No, this is the same card that the other person recommended. I think it's exactly the same card for around $345. That's really funny. Now I can definitely see where this person decided to save a bit on the budget, and I think this is actually a pretty good choice in hindsight. I mean, comparing the 2 lists from Intel, from the 2 builders we've seen so far, I think this list is stronger because it prioritizes performance and doesn't really splurge too much in the way of other, like, for example, the $70 Zalman case, right, from Nico's build. It's a fine case, but if you really want to squeak out performance, you just cut that in half, right? Allocate $30 or $40 to your case, and then you've got another $30 or $40 to allocate toward a better CPU, or maybe more RAM or faster memory or what have you. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's why this list is better, right, than Nico's, is because we're $100 over budget, whereas in Nico's case, we were about $200 under budget. So that can make up for a lot in terms of performance. I also apologize, my voice sounds a little rusty because well, flu season. There you go. So that was a really strong list. Again, going slightly over budget. That's a some would say that's a pretty big red flag, but you know, it is what it is. I think considering how cheap Nico's build was, they're pretty similar. I do like this list more. But the person did go over budget, so I'd say some folks would probably see that as a disqualification of sorts. Let's check out the AMD one, because this one I think is going to be really strong. So we start off first with a Ryzen 5 5600X, a really good CPU to start with there. ASRock X570M Pro 4 Micro ATX motherboard. Look at that, 180 bucks, saving money definitely on the platform side, going with AMD. Corsair Vengeance LPX, 16 gigs, 3200 megahertz, Castle AC16 for 62 bucks from Best Buy. That's a good kit. We have the same, it looks like, 500 gig NVMe SSD from Western Digital for $41. That's a heck of a money saver right there. I really love that deal. We've got the same graphics card, 1650. It's funny. They're all relying on this 1650 here on Amazon for $345, but it is what it is. And then we have the same Q300L and the same 500 watt power supply for 50 bucks and $32 respectively. I think this list is also very strong. Notice here how there is no custom cooler, and that ultimately is the differentiator between this one and the Intel one, apart from obviously the platform architecture difference. There is no aftermarket cooler here, and that's because the 5600X I think ships with a Wraith Stealth cooler, which is good enough for the CPU. It doesn't run super hot. There's no integrated graphics. There's really no need for anything beefier than this if you're on a budget. So I think that the part choice all around here is extremely strong. This list I would definitely say is better than the one that Nico gave me. Not that there's anything wrong with Nico's. I just think that for, you know, the value that you're getting, the performance you're getting for the dollar spent here, this one from this person is this is pretty solid. This AMD build is a really good one for $1,000. Now we do have one more order to check out. This from a person called Vision Reflect. I submitted the order December 30th. And let's see, I was replied to basically the same day within like 2 or 3 hours. And actually, that was my whole order. I received my order within 3 hours. So in terms of turnaround time, this person here, Vision, super fast. This person also asked the right questions, and several of them, which finally someone asked these. I was waiting for someone to be a bit more detailed and thorough and asking questions that I think need to be asked to get the right build in place. This first question here, what are you going to use your PC for? Any specific programs you'll be using? I just said gaming, wanted to keep it simple, but that's, again, very good question. The second, what's your maximum budget for all components? I said $1,000, of course. The third question, if we're using any parts, monitors, keyboard, mouse, etc., what brands and models are appreciated? This would be a good question if I was doing that, but I'm not, you know, including any of that stuff in this build. I'm not worried about it, so I didn't answer that one, and I said no for the next one, which asked if any extra items needed to be included, like a monitor, keyboard, and mouse. Any peripherals, I just said no. Do you have any specific case preferences, size, colors, RGB lighting, etc.? Another really good question that I was not asked by the other two contestants, and I just said no here. I wanted to kind of keep their keep their options open. And then, do you need a copy of Windows for your PC? Another very valid question. I said no. I'm just going to assume I'm going to buy one for 10 bucks somewhere. And again, with those questions in mind, I received my order within 3 hours or so, which is really, really awesome. I said, hi, Greg. Thanks again for your order. Here's your PC parts list. We'll click on this in a second. It says, one thing to note is that graphics cards are currently extremely difficult to find, especially at good prices. I have left $330 in your budget that should go towards the GPU. Since they're so difficult to find in retail stores, I would suggest that you look at either a GTX 1660 or RTX 2060 on eBay, the latter one being the better one. Don't look at the super variants as they're more attractive to crypto miners, which have increased those prices. In case you don't find a graphics card right away, I've selected a processor with built-in graphics so that you can use the video output on your motherboard in the meantime. Then once you've found and bought a graphics card, you can switch your video cable to the outputs on the card. If there are any problems, please let me know. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks again and have a great day. Max from Vision Reflect. All right, so that's interesting. I'm a bit disappointed reading that. Again, I haven't even looked at the list yet, but it sounds like this person didn't really give me a solid answer on what graphics card I should buy. And that was kind of the whole point of this, is, you know, leaving me to my own devices. I I mean, I could have done that on my own, but I wanted someone else to pick for me. So I'm slightly upset at that, but you know, it is what it is. And I'm sure if I had gone back to this person and asked for a specific card, you know, that they recommend, whether it be on Amazon or Newegg or whatever, they would have given it to me. But the fact that it wasn't given up front when that was kind of the whole point of this, that kind of a letdown. I'm just being picky at this point. But with how quickly Vision replied the first time around, I've no doubt I could get that answer quickly if I needed to. Now here's the PC part picker link here, and it looks like the CPU chosen was a Ryzen 5 5600G, which I actually, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. Because like this person said, if I'm going to be kind of waiting for a graphics card, maybe a good deal to show up at some point, you know, I want to be able to at least use my system until then, especially if I'm not going to have a discrete card in there. And a 5600G is actually a very viable substitute for a weaker discrete card in 2021, 2022. So I actually agree with this logic, and you're still going to get, again, solid Zen 3 CPU cores, so great IPC all around. You're going to get a cooler baked in as well. So this is a pretty good recommendation. I actually like this approach. Now for the motherboard, we have an MSI B550A Pro ATX AM4 board. It's $137. This saved us quite a bit of money here, and you can buy it on Amazon, so that's a really good place to buy this stuff. Let's see, memory, G.Skill Ripjaws 5, 16 gigs, 3600 megahertz CL18 memory, really good there. Wow, found it for $55. That's a really good find on Newegg. Granted, this is a few days after the list from the other two were made. So again, you know, price and time dependent. Keep that in mind. Samsung 970 EVO, a 500 gig NVMe drive, $65. Not as good a deal as that 500 gig WD Blue NVMe drive, but this one might be slightly faster. I'd have to look at the stats. But anyway, $65 is not bad. Interesting, you can buy it for that from GameStop though. I don't think I've ever bought an NVMe drive from GameStop. Storage also threw in a 2 terabyte 7200 RPM hard disk drive. That's pretty cool. That was set us back $47 on Amazon. This is the only one I think where 2 different storage drives have been included in the same build. The Masterbox MB510L was chosen for the case. It's a mid-tower, $65. You can find it on Newegg. And then the power supply, a 650 watt, 80 plus gold, fully modular power supply. After a promo, it'll cost you about $70. Now that brings the total down here at the bottom to $685, leaving us with roughly $300 for a card, like you said. So I mean, $300 pretty much would just get you the 1650, like the others were recommending. And maybe by the time this person sent this list, even that card was sold out. So maybe that's why they didn't send the same card that the other two did. That seemed like a pretty consistent one to rely on for lists like these in this price range. But again, kind of sucks that it's not in the list itself, you know, kind of just like saying, well, $300 should get you this or this. Actually, we just looked up on eBay, if you recall, 1660s, they are not selling for $300 on eBay, like not even close. And let alone RTX 2060s, you're just not going to find them for $300 unless someone's selling what he or she has no idea what the value is currently. And if that's the case, it's going to be scooped up super fast. So that's the other thing I would point out here. If I had to critique anything, it would be that Max really didn't. I mean, this part here, you know, I would suggest either a 1660 Super or 2060. Again, you're not going to find those on eBay for $300. So it's a bit out of touch, you know, because I'm going to go and look this up, and I'm going to realize that this is like half of what I need for especially this card. But even 1660s are selling for in the $500 range. Sometimes in the $400 range, sure. But I highly doubt you see anything with a 3 in front of it, unless the card's broken. And at that point, again, that's the risk of, you know, being a first-time builder. If that was the case here, I might end up buying a card that's actually broken because I didn't do enough research to figure out that the card was actually just listed for parts, if it's my first time ever buying anything on eBay. So, you know, the fact that I didn't specify, I mean, that gives them a bit of leadway there. I didn't say if I wanted new or used, but I wasn't asked that in the requirements tab. You know, that wasn't a question here, so maybe it should have been. Everything else in this list is okay. Nothing really stands out. Again, we found a cheaper NVMe with the previous listing. The inclusion of a 2 terabyte hard disk drive is quite nice. But, you know, we've got $65 here for this case. It was cheaper before, I believe. And then, you know, $70 for the 650 watt. I mean, it's a great power supply. It's gold certified, but you don't need a $70 PSU for this build especially. I mean, there's no discrete card in it, for crying out loud. But even if you wanted to add one later, 650 is more than you would need for a 1650 Ryzen 5 combo. So I think this listing here is the best. Again, the second persons we looked at, The AMD version, I should say. The Intel one, not so much, because they went over budget, even though I like the combination of hardware there. That is that's a pretty big issue. But I think swapping out this 5600X with a 5600G, if you want to be in the position where you can buy a discrete graphics card later on, if you don't want to jump onto the 1650 bandwagon right now, that would be the ideal list, just so you could kind of plan ahead, right? So all in all, I think all three orders were pretty impressive. Nico did pretty good up front. The fact that I still got 2 listings, I only ordered once, that's a plus. The second person had, I think, the strongest listing overall, and again, I was given 2 listings when I was only guaranteed one. And then the third order, I think they asked the right questions. They asked more than one question, which is already a plus. And they did give us a pretty detailed explanation as to their approach here. Granted, again, I wasn't thrown a card. You have to. The whole point was for you to tell me what to buy, not to just kind of like, well, now you have $300 left over. Good luck trying to find something on eBay. And even then, the cards you told me I could buy for $300 on eBay, that's not going to happen. So slightly out of touch there. But I do like the approach with the 5600G. So I'd like the nitpick from all three. It's really cool. I would have been fine with just one, but if you wanted to really do your due diligence, maybe hire 2 or 3 folks for like 15, 20 bucks all in, and then you'll have a nice well-rounded opinion as to what you should be buying for that $1,000, or insert budget here. If you guys enjoyed this approach to a video, maybe you just wanted to see something different and this satisfied that curiosity of yours, let me know in the comment section below. I figured this would be fun, again, just seeing what other people are recommending in this current market. Obviously, there's PC Part Picker and other things. You could be doing this for free. You don't by any means have to hire anyone. But I did just kind of want to jump into the deep end and see how things are going over here on Fiverr and see what folks are recommending in this climate. It's very difficult. And if you're new to PC building and you don't have a friend you could ask to put your parts list together for free, or maybe you don't have like a Discord server or something where they could do that, I think it's fine. $5 here or there, it's not a big deal. You're helping someone else out. They're very responsive, and they'll pretty much point you in the right direction, with very few exceptions. You can always take this list and go ask friends after the fact if maybe they don't have time to put a list together for you. But I mean, the time it takes to put these lists together, I'll be upfront with you, it takes like 3 minutes. Like, I've been doing this a long time, so putting lists together like these is really easy to do, especially when you know what works with what. So maybe reach out to your local Discord. Maybe someone can put together a list for you there for free. But if you don't have those tools at your disposal, I think that Fiverr is a pretty sweet way to do it on the cheap. There's a lot of really good recommendations out there. With that, if you guys enjoyed this one, be sure to let me know if you guys want a thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. Again, leave your feedback in the comment section below. Consider subscribing if you have not already, and I'll catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.